Hello, Scootney 6th graders. Miss Waage here. And for today's science video and lesson, I've actually got a couple special guests who are going to be doing it with me. So I'll go ahead and let my first guest, who's a dear friend of mine, take over from here. So have fun. Howdy, y'all. My name's Alice. Some people call me Alice from Dallas because it is true. I am from Dallas, Texas. And I actually met your teacher, Mrs. Waage, when we went to school together in Pullman at WSU. We were in the same geology class. Although she was studying to become a teacher, I was studying to become a geologist. So this experiment here that she's having me do with y'all is quite fitting because it kind of has to do with rocks, soils, and such, erosion, all that. That is what I work with as a geologist. Yes, indeed. So I'm excited to get to do this experiment with you. Now, I know we've all been in quarantine, and I know your teacher's been wearing all these crazy hats with these videos she's been doing, but this right here, this is my real hair. I used to be blonde, but all this quarantine hair craziness made me decide I should dye my hair pink, and I also did the bangs. That's a double quarantine hair whammy. That's what I like to call that. But you know what? It's been growing on me. I really like it. So I hope y'all like it too. Alright, anyway, let's get to some science. First up, we're going to look at how ice can impact erosion. Alrighty, so your teacher, Miss Waage, told me that she had assigned to you a video where you can demonstrate erosion by ice by either putting an egg in the freezer or a water bottle, or some sort of crazy trick with some ice cream. Well, I chose to do the one with the egg, because I thought that might be the easiest one to show you. So, here is my egg that I had in the freezer. As you can see, there's a crack, and there's actually a little bit of the egg coming out onto the shell. So why does this happen? Well, when water freezes, it expands. So this egg demonstrates what can happen with erosion when water freezes, say underneath the Earth's surface, and then it freezes and it expands and leads to a crack in the Earth. So this egg modeled that because the part of the egg froze, or the whole egg froze, and it expanded and it cracked the egg. So this can also happen in nature when some sort of liquid gets frozen and expands and causes a landform to crack or change its shape. So, before we even continue on with erosion, I should probably talk about what that is, in case you weren't sure. So, erosion is the breaking down of any type of landform. So, this usually happens by wind, water, and ice. So, we're talking about ice right now, and we're about to move on to water. Alright, so y'all just saw that picture of that glacier. And before we moved on to talking about water, I wanted to touch a little bit on glaciers. So, glaciers are like a big block of ice that are moving through on top of a landform, and they carve out the land because they're just big and powerful. So, I'm going to show you real quick a picture of a place that Miss Waage actually visited when she was in New Zealand. I would love to go see this glacier. It is very cool. It's still there. And you can see how it's carved out the land, but it's also, you can still see the tip of the glacier. And it is slowly moving. It moves a little bit each year. And as it does, it's changing the landform, eroding it. So it is a great example of erosion by ice. Let's take a look. So as you can see, the way that glacier has carved out, it almost looks like a valley or a canyon of some sort, because that glacier's moved through, and as it's melted, it's left that shape that you see. So there's parts where you can tell the glacier used to be because it carved out that land, but now it's melted parts of it, and so now it's just the banks of where the glacier used to be. So that's some pretty cool science, I must say. All right, next up, some erosion by water. Erosion by water happens in a variety of ways. One of the most common ones that we're familiar with would be erosion by rainfall. So, I know that it doesn't rain a whole lot in Texas, nor does it rain a whole lot in Othello, your area of Washington. However, it does rain a lot on that western side of Washington, and the way that it impacts erosion is that when it hits the surface of the earth, it can accumulate, so build up and create small streams and rivers. Which rivers, that's a big one for erosion, because rivers, as they flow down, they take away particles from the land that they're running through, and they erode at the sides. So sometimes you'll see rivers that started out really narrow, and as more rainfall happened, they would flood a little more, bring up the water level, and eventually change the landscape, because they would expand and break away more parts of that land as it flowed down due to the increase in the amount of water flowing through the river. And another one that you'll often see is erosion by waves. So when the ocean waves are crashing up against a bank, that force of the water is breaking off particles of the bank that it is smacking up against. Or if it's going up against the sand, it brings it back as the waves splash up against it, and it erodes that land that the water is coming into contact with. So we're going to model all three of these types of erosion using, we've got this handy dandy tray of dirt, and I got this nice jug of water. So we're going to go ahead and get started by doing that. But first things first, this is science. And I know I'm probably not going to get anything in my eyes, but I always want to be safe. So I'm going to put on my safety goggles. Yes, I know I look so good in these. Oh yeah. All right, we are ready to rock and roll. So first up, we're going to look at how rainfall would affect this soil here that we've got. So this could represent just any surface of earth that you're looking at. It's got dirt, sand. Might not be perfect, but we're going to see what happens. So we're going to say we're getting some pretty heavy rainfall. Let's take a look. So, whoa. All right. So let's let that soak in a little bit. So, woo, as you can see, when I change the angle of this tray here, some of the dirt went sliding off. So that could be something that you might see in real life, like a landslide. When you've got a piece of land that's at an angle and it gets a lot of heavy rainfall, that land can slide off. That is considered erosion. So it might be hard to see, but that rain has actually carved out some holes in this chunk of land that we're working with here, and some of it has fallen off. So that was kind of to represent what rainfall could do over time, how it could change the land. I'm going to try doing this at an angle here to show a river that might be flowing downstream and how that could impact what we get with the landform. So we're going to put this at an angle here. See? So prop that up, and we'll see how it looks a little different. I'm going to try and use this side of the dirt here that's a little more dry. We're going to try to see what happens to it if this were a river flowing downstream. Ooh, there it goes. It's a little bit. Whoa! Alright, so if this had carved out a little more of a stream-like flow, you could see that some of that was eroding, and it came right down off to the bottom. So with rivers, what happens is you've got a kind of a pathway carved out, and over time, so you can kind of see how it's broken down all the way to the bottom here, the sides slowly break away as that water flows through, and eventually the sediment, the pieces broken off of the rocks, end up there at the bottom. So they flow down and they break down into smaller pieces. So you can see that all that sediment has traveled down here now to the bottom of our tray. So that would be like the bedrock in a river that travels down and breaks down into smaller pieces. And we'll see it as sediment. So pretty cool. All right, that was our first one. So we were looking at some rainfall, how that changed the landscape. We talked a little bit about landslides, how those can happen, and also how a river can be carved out and the little pieces get broken down as they travel down the river. Next up, we're going to go ahead and model how waves, so we've got some water here, and we've got a little bit of a bank. So we're going to see how, if I create some waves using this lid here, how the waves are going to impact that bank that we've got the ocean coming up against. So let's give it some waves here. I don't know which the best way for you guys to see this is. Maybe we'll do it this way. Creating some waves. Woo! Those are some big waves. All right, we got the waves going here. Now, before, that water was clear. It did not look like this. Now we've got a bunch of murky water. So, that shows us that those ocean waves, as they smack up against the bank here, they are pulling away pieces of sediment or pieces of rock as they break it down and they erode it. So erosion really is just the breaking down of other materials. So it has eroded the bank and now those pieces are inside the water. So that is another way that erosion occurs. More specifically, when we're talking about ocean waves or any other sorts of waves hitting another surface. Slowly it breaks down those pieces and they can erode away. Sixth graders, I had so much fun doing this experiment with you. I hope Miss Waage asks me to do it again. I would love to do that. But I think she's got another special guest that's going to talk to you about wind erosion. So, until next time, sixth graders, this is Alice from Dallas. I hope to see you soon. Hello again, sixth graders. Miss Waage here, and I have one more special guest for you. And he's going to be coming to us from the field. So, we got local farmer Lincoln Taylor here to talk to you a little bit about wind erosion. So, take it away, Lincoln.
Well, hey guys. As you can see, we're out here standing in a organic pea field. We're here to talk to you today about wind erosion. As a lot of you have probably seen in the last few days, especially, springtime in the basin can be quite windy. You may have noticed just the wind blowing like crazy across the roads and all of that. That right there is wind erosion in effect. The basin can be quite dry. Luckily we have the beautiful Columbia Basin Irrigation Project that supplies us with this water, as long as wells and other means of irrigation. And that really mitigates the problem.
Can you talk to them a little bit about what happens when the soil from the crops gets blown all over the place?
It makes a mess.
Okay, so yes, it makes a mess. The air, you can see that it looks dirty and dusty, but how does it impact crops, or how can it impact crops?
Well, in conditions like yesterday, where wind was blowing 40-50 miles an hour, dust particles can rip through the air and damage leaves of the crop. Right now they're in the very early stages of crop development, and that can highly damage the first few starts of the crop, just setting them back even further than they originally were.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. That is some wind erosion for you. And before we go, one last thing. I'm going to take you over here to this canal, which this was man-made, but you can still see the effects of erosion, because do you notice how narrow the canal is there at the end versus how wide it's gotten in this direction? So, the banks of the canal have been eroded by the water that runs through it every day. Ain't that pretty cool? You gotta love science. Give them a thumbs up.